My name is Sebastian. I've spent most of my 25 years trying to be invisible. I perfected the art of blending into backgrounds of speaking, only when spoken to of crafting a persona so meticulously neutral that no one would ever have reason to look too closely. This carefully constructed invisibility served me well throughout high school in my small Midwestern town, through 4 years at a state university, where I kept my head down and my secrets close, and into my early professional life as a graphic designer at a mid-sized marketing firm in Chicago. It wasn't that I was ashamed. Exactly, I had come to terms with my sexuality years ago in the privacy of my own thoughts, but there's a vast difference between private acceptance and public acknowledgement. The former required only my own permission, the latter invited the world's judgment, and so I maintained my carefully constructed walls, dating occasion but discreetly keeping relationships superficial, never allowing anyone to get close enough to see the real me. Then came the email from Ethan, my closest friend from college and one of the few people who knew the truth about me. The subject line read simply, "Something you need to see the body of." The email contained a link to a website called The Clearing and a brief message, "Summer retreat for LGBTQ+ professionals. I went last year, changed my life. You should consider it. Applications due next week." I nearly deleted it immediately. The thought of spending a week with strangers who would expect me to be open about the part of myself I'd spent years concealing was terrifying, but something made me click. The link and what I found surprised me. The Clearing wasn't what I had expected. It wasn't a pride parade, wasn't a hookup retreat, wasn't group therapy. It was described as a professional development and personal growth experience for LGBTQ+ individuals seeking to integrate their authentic selves into their personal and professional lives. The retreat took place at a former summer camp converted into a year-round conference center nestled in the forest of northern Michigan. The photos showed rustic cabins, modernized with comfortable amenities, large central lodge, and various outdoor spaces for activities. What caught my attention were the testimonials, professionals from various fields speaking about how the week had helped them reconcile the compartmentalized parts of their lives, how they had formed meaningful connections and returned to their careers with renewed purpose. There was something in their eyes in the accompanying photos, a clarity, a certainty that I found myself envying. I closed the website, determined to forget about it, but over the next few days I found myself returning to it, repeatedly reading more testimonials, studying the schedule of activities, calculating whether I could afford the registration fee, and a week away from work by the time the application deadline arrived, I had convinced myself it was worth trying. What was the worst that could happen? If I hated it, I could always leave early. 3 months later, I found myself driving along a winding forest road following GPS directions that seemed increasingly dubious as I ventured deeper into the woods. Just as I was beginning to think I had made a terrible mistake, a wooden sign appeared. The Clearing burned into a slab of pine, an arrow pointing down a gravel drive. The drive opened into a large clearing, aptly named, I thought, where a collection of wooden buildings surrounded a central green space. Several cars were already parked in a designated area, and I could see people carrying bags toward various cabins. My stomach tightened with familiar anxiety as I parked and sat for a moment, gathering my courage. A tap on my window startled me. A woman with short gray hair and kind eyes stood outside, smiling. I rolled down the window. "First timer?" she asked. When I nodded, her smile widened. "Thought so. You've got that deer in headlights look I see every year. I'm Dr. Helen, one of the facilitators. You must be." She consulted a tablet in her hand. "Sebastian, that's me," I confirmed, impressed by her memory of the arrival list. "Well, Sebastian, the hardest part is getting out of the car after that. It's all downhill." She stepped back, gesturing for me to join her. "Let me show you to your cabin and we can get you settled." Somehow her matter-of-fact kindness made it easier to open the door and retrieve my luggage from the trunk. As we walked across the grounds, Dr. Helen pointed out the various buildings The main lodge where meals and large group activities would take place, the activity center with indoor spaces for workshops, the meditation cabin, overlooking a small lake, and finally, the residential cabins arranged in a loose semicircle at the edge of the woods. "You're in Cabin Pine," she said, stopping in front of a structure that looked like a modernized version of a traditional log cabin. 4 people to a cabin looks like 2 of your cabin mates are already here. My anxiety returned full force. I had somehow overlooked this detail. I would be sharing living space with strangers for the entire week. "The cabins have private bedrooms," Dr. Helen added, seeming to sense my discomfort. "Comfort. You'll share common space and bathrooms, but you'll have your own room for sleeping and privacy." This was somewhat reassuring, but not enough to quell the urge to return to my car and drive away. Dr. Helen knocked on the cabin door before opening it and gesturing for me to enter. The interior was surprisingly modern and comfortable, a central living area with comfortable seating surrounded a small fireplace, a kitchenette occupied one corner, and 4 doors, presumably leading to the private bedroom, were spaced around the perimeter. 2 men looked up as we entered. "Sebastian, these are 2 of your cabin mates." Miguel, she nodded toward a slender Latino man who appeared to be in his 30s, and Caleb, the second man, tall with sandy hair and glasses, raised a hand in greeting. "The 4th member of your cabin group, Jasper, hasn't arrived yet," Dr. Helen continued. "I'll leave you to get acquainted. Orientation begins in the main lodge at 5:00 p.m. With that, she was gone and I was left standing awkwardly in the door, luggage in hand. "The bedroom on the far right is still free if you want it," Miguel offered, breaking the silence. "Got the one next to the bathroom," and Caleb took the one by the window. "Thanks." I managed, wheeling my suitcase toward the indicated door. "First time at the clearing?" Caleb asked, his voice carrying a slight southern accent. I nodded. "Is it that obvious?" Miguel laughed. "We were all first-timers once. This is my 3rd year. Second for me," Caleb added. "It gets easier." I promise. I appreciated their attempt at reassurance, but wasn't convinced. I excused myself to unpack, grateful for the brief reprieve from social interaction. The bedroom was small but thoughtfully designed, with a comfortable-looking twin bed, a small desk, and enough storage for my belongings. A window overlooked the woods, offering a view of sunlight filtering through the trees. As I unpacked, I could hear Miguel and Caleb chatting in the common area, their voices a comfortable background hum. I was tempted to stay in my room until orientation, but I knew that would defeat the purpose of coming here. Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to return to the common area. Miguel was making tea in the kitchenette, while Caleb sat on one of the sofas, scrolling through his phone. They both looked up as I emerged. "Tea?" Miguel offered. "Sure, thanks," I said, taking a seat in an armchair across from Caleb. "So what brings you to the clearing?" Caleb asked, setting his phone aside. Besides the obvious shared experience, the question caught me off guard. I hadn't prepared an answer beyond the vague professional development reason I'd given my boss to get the time off. "I'm not entirely sure," I admitted. "A friend recommended it, said it changed his life." Caleb nodded. "That's how most people end up here, word of mouth." "What about you?" I asked, partly out of politeness, partly to deflect attention. "Last year I came because my therapist thought it would help with my coming out process at work," he said with surprising candor. "I'm a high school science teacher in Tennessee, so not the easiest environment this year. I'm back because the experience was valuable enough to repeat." Miguel brought over 3 mugs of tea, distributing them before taking a seat. "I first came because I was tired of compartmentalizing my life," he offered, without being asked. "Corporately lawyer. Very buttoned up firm, lots of code switching. I wanted to find a way to be the same person in all contexts." Their honesty was disarming. I found myself saying, "I guess I'm tired of hiding, of being careful all the time, but I'm not sure I know how to be any other way." A look passed between Miguel and Caleb, not pity but recognition. "That's why you're in the right place," Caleb said simply. Before I could respond, the cabin door opened, and a whirlwind of energy entered in the form of a black man with a shaved head, an infectious grin. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare, and then I took a wrong turn and ended up at some summer Camp with very confused teenage campers. He announced, dropping his bags. Dramatically, I'm Jasper, by the way. Pronouns Heim, second-year attendee, and self-appointed cabin social director. His enthusiasm was overwhelming, but somehow not annoying after introductions were made. And Jasper had inspected his room with running commentary on the improved mattresses from last year. We made our way to the main lodge for orientation. The central lodge was a larger version of our cabin with soaring ceilings supported by massive wooden beams. About 40 people had gathered, a diverse group in terms of age, race, and gender. Presentation. As we found seats, I felt my anxiety returning. What was I doing here? These people all seemed so comfortable, so at ease with themselves and each other. Dr. Helen took the center of the room along with two other facilitators, who introduced themselves as Marcus and Lee. They outlined the structure of the week. Mornings would begin with optional movement sessions, yoga, hiking, or tai chi, followed by large group activities. Before lunch, afternoons would include workshops and small group sessions, with evenings dedicated to community building and reflection. The clearing is what you make of it, Dr. Helen explained. We provide the structure and the space, but you determine how deeply you engage, what you share, and what you take away. The only requirement is respect for yourself and others. After orientation came dinner, a buffet-style meal that encouraged mingling. I found myself at a table with my cabin mates and a few others, including a transgender woman named Valerie who worked in it, and a non-binary person named Alex who was a pediatrician. The conversation flowed surprisingly easily, perhaps because everyone there understood something fundamental about each other's experience without needing to explain it. As we walked back to our cabin in the gathering dusk, Caleb fell into step beside me. Overwhelming, isn't it? He asked quietly. A bit, I admitted. Everyone seems so comfortable. He laughed softly. Trust me, most of them are just better at faking it. By Wednesday, you'll see the cracks. There was something comforting about his perspective, about the way he acknowledged the challenge without dismissing it. Back at the cabin, Jasper suggested a nightcap, producing a bottle of whiskey he'd brought for medicinal purposes. We sat around the small fireplace, which Miguel had managed to light, and sipped the amber liquid from coffee mugs. The conversation meandered from work stories to coming out experiences to favorite books and films. I mostly listened, occasionally contributing, but generally happy to observe. Caleb, I know, noticed, had a quiet intensity when he spoke, a thoughtfulness that suggested he considered his words carefully. He caught me watching him once and held my gaze for a moment before smiling slightly and returning his attention to Jasper's animated story about a disastrous date. By the time we retired to our respective rooms, I felt an unexpected sense of ease. These strangers had become almost familiar in the span of a few hours, and the prospect of spending a week with them no longer seemed quite so daunting. I opted for the hiking group the next morning, needing movement and fresh air to clear my head. To my surprise, Caleb joined the same group, appearing at the trailhead in worn hiking boots and a faded National Park t-shirt. You hike? He asked, falling into step beside me as our group of 8 followed a trail into the woods. When I replied, not much opportunity in Chicago, but I try to get out to the state parks when possible. The conversation flowed naturally as we hiked, touching on our shared love of the outdoors, our respective cities. He lived in Nashville, and eventually circling back to why we were at the clearing last year was transformative for me, Caleb said as we paused to drink water at a scenic overlook. I came out to my department chair and a few close colleagues. When I got back home, it didn't fix everything, but it lifted a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. Weren't you worried about backlash? I asked, being a teacher in a conservative area. He nodded, terrified, but one of the things I learned here is that fear of a thing is often worse than the thing itself. Some parents complained, sure, but my principal was surprisingly supportive. And the kids, he smiled, kids these days are different than when we were young. Many of them already knew or suspected, and mostly they just wanted to know if they could still call me Mr. C. His honesty moved me. I don't know if I could Be that brave, Caleb looked at me. Thoughtfully, bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's feeling the fear and doing the thing. Anyway, the rest of the morning passed in structured activities designed to build community among the 40 participants. After lunch, we broke into smaller groups. For our first workshop sessions, I had chosen one called Authentic Communication in Professional Settings. Hoping for practical advice I could apply at work, the workshop was helpful, offering concrete strategies for disclosing as much or as little of my personal life as I felt comfortable with in professional contexts, but more valuable were the discussions with other participants who shared similar concerns and experiences. For the first time, I didn't feel alone in my hesitations and fears. Dinner that evening was followed by a bonfire by the lake. As darkness fell, people shared stories, some humorous, some heartbreaking, about their journeys. I sat slightly apart from the main circle, absorbing but not yet ready to contribute. To my surprise, Caleb joined me on my log instead of sitting with the larger group. Not feeling storytelling tonight, he asked. I shook my head, still in observation mode. Fair enough. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the fire cast its glow on the assembled faces. Can I ask you something? I said, finally, curiosity overcoming my usual reserve. Sure, why did you come back this year if last year was so successful? I mean, Caleb considered the question, his profile illuminated by the distant fur light. Last year was about accepting who I am. This year is about figuring out what I want. And what do you want? The question felt bold, almost intrusive, but something about the night and the setting made it seem natural. He turned to look at me, his expression thoughtful. Authentic connection, a life where I don't have to translate myself for others to understand me. He paused. Someone to share it with. There was something in his gaze that made my heart beat faster. I looked away, back toward the fire, unsure how to respond. What about you, Sebastian? What do you want? The question hung between us, more significant than it should have been. I'm not sure yet, I admitted. That's why here, I guess, to figure it out. Caleb nodded, seeming to accept this well. You've got 5 more days, no rush. The next few days fell into a rhythm. Mornings and nature structured activities, workshops, and evenings of connection. I found myself drawn to Caleb's quiet presence, seeking him out. During meals and group activities, we discovered shared interests in science, fiction, literature, documentary films, and chess, which we played late into the night in our cabin while Miguel and Jasper slept. During a particularly competitive game on the third night, I found myself studying Caleb's face as he contemplated his move, the concentration in his eyes, the slight furrow of his brow, the way he absently pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. These details had become familiar, almost precious. What? He asked, catching me starring. Nothing, I said quickly, just wondering why you're taking so long with your move. Afraid you're going to lose? He grinned, moving his bishop to take my knight check. I refocused on the game, but something had shifted. Tech, I was aware of him in a way I hadn't been before. The proximity of his hand when he moved a piece, the faint scent of his soap, the warmth of his laugh when I made a particularly poor move on the 4th day. Our workshop focused on vulnerability and connection. The facilitator, Leela, divided us into pairs and gave us a series of increasingly personal questions to discuss. I was paired with Alex, the pediatrician, and found the exercise surprisingly powerful. By the end, I had shared things I rarely discussed: my difficult relationship with my father, my fear of rejection, my tendency to keep people at a distance. After the workshop, I felt raw, exposed in a way that was both uncomfortable and oddly freeing. I needed space to process, so I headed to the lake. Finding a secluded spot on the shore, I sat on a fallen log, watching the water ripple in the afternoon breeze. Mind some company. Caleb's voice came from behind me. I turned to see him standing a few feet away, hands in his pockets, expression uncertain. Not at all, I said, moving over to make room on the log. He sat beside me, closer than necessary given the space available. Neither of us spoke for a while, content to watch the play of light on water. Intense workshop today, he said. Finally, very, I agreed. I told a stranger things I've never told anyone. Caleb nodded. That's how it works here. Sometimes it's easier to be honest with people you'll never see. Again, is that why you came back for more? Honesty with strangers. He turned to look at me, his expression serious. I came back, hoping to find something I missed last year. And have you found it? My voice was quieter than I intended. Caleb held my gaze. I think I might be getting close. The moment stretched between us charged with possibility. Then gently he reached out and placed his hand over mine where it rested on the log. The touch was tentative, a question more than a statement. I turned my hand over, allowing our palms to meet, our fingers to intertwine. Something unlocked in my chest, a door I had kept firmly closed for so long that I had forgotten what lay behind it. We sat like that, hand in hand, watching the lake until the dinner bell called us back that evening. Instead of joining the group activity, a talent show in the main lodge, Caleb suggested a walk. We followed a trail through the woods as dusk settled around us, our conversation flowing easily from topic to topic. When we reached a small clearing bathed in the light of the rising moon, "See, stop, Sebastian," he said, my name sounding different in his voice weighted with meaning. I need to be clear about something. My heart raced, anticipation and anxiety mingling. "Okay, I'm attracted to you," he said simply, and not just in a physical way, though there is that. A small smile touched his lips. "I find myself thinking about you when we're not together, looking for you when we enter a room. I know we've only known each other for a few days, and maybe this is just the intensity of this place, but it feels significant." His honesty took my breath away. In my carefully constructed life, people didn't speak this plainly, this openly about their feelings. "You don't have to say anything," he continued. When I didn't immediately respond, "I just wanted you to know where I stand. No pressure, no expectations." I found my voice. "I feel it. Do I emitted the words surprisingly easy to say. "I've been drawn to you since the first day, but I didn't know if it was mutual or if I was just projecting because of the setting." Relief and happiness transformed his face. "So not just me then?" "Not just you," I confirmed. He moved closer, his hand coming up to rest lightly on my shoulder. "May I kiss you, Sebastian?" The formal request, so considerate and respectful, moved me deeply. "Yes," I whispered. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if we were both afraid the moment might shatter. But as his arms encircled me and mine found their way around his waist, the kiss deepened, became more confident, more certain. I had been kissed before, had even had relationships, but nothing had felt like this, like coming home to a place I hadn't known I was missing. When we finally parted, both slightly breathless, Caleb rested his forehead against mine. "Well," he said softly, "that answers that question." I laughed, happiness bubbling up unexpectedly. "Which question was that?" "Whether there was something real here, or if I was imagining it." We walked back to the cabin, hand in hand, stopping occasionally to kiss in the moonlight. Our cabin mates were still at the talent show, giving us the privacy to sit close on the sofa, talking and kissing and exploring this new territory between us. "What happens after this week?" I asked, eventually voicing the concern that had been growing alongside my feelings. "You're in Nashville, I'm in Chicago." Caleb brushed his thumb across my cheek. "We figure it out together if that's what you want." "I think it is," I said, surprising myself with the certainty I felt. "I want to see where this goes." His smile was worth any uncertainty, any obstacle we might face. "So do I." The remaining days at the clearing took on a dreamlike quality. Caleb and I participated in the scheduled activities, but found every opportunity to be alone together. Walks in the woods, quiet moments by the lake, late nights in the cabin after Miguel and Jasper had gone to bed. We learned each other's stories, fears, hopes, and dreams with an intensity that would have frightened me under normal circumstances, but somehow felt right in this place. In this time, on our last full day, the final workshop focused on taking our experiences back to our everyday lives. How would we maintain the authenticity we had discovered here? How would we navigate the challenges of returning to environments that might not be as accepting? "It won't be easy," the facilitator Marcus acknowledged, "but you don't have to do it all at once. Small steps chosen intentionally can lead to significant change over time." That evening, as the entire group gathered for a closing ceremony around The bonfire I found myself volunteering to speak something the old Sebastian would never have done when I arrived here. I said, standing in the circle of fire. Light I was an expert at. Hiding I had constructed a life that was neat, controlled, and completely inauthentic. I came here hoping to find some strategies for being more honest about who I am without appending my entire existence. I paused, looking around at the faces that had become familiar and dear. In such a short time, what I found instead was the courage to want more, to believe I deserve more. My eyes found Caleb's across the fire, his gaze steady and warm. I'm leaving with more questions than answers about what comes next, but for the first time I'm excited about the journey rather than afraid of it. After the ceremony, as people exchanged contact information and heartfelt goodbyes, Caleb and I walked to our special spot by the lake. The moon was full, casting silver light across the water. I meant what I said. I told him about wanting more, about being excited instead of afraid. He took my hand, his touch now familiar and comforting. I know I saw it happening day by day, you opening up, standing taller, speaking more freely. It's been beautiful to witness. You helped make it possible, I said, seeing myself through your eyes. It changed something fundamental. Caleb shook his head. I just recognized what was already there. You did the hard work. We stood in silence for a moment, absorbing the beauty around us, the significance of the moment. So what happens tomorrow? I asked. When we drive away from here, back to our separate cities, our separate lives. Caleb turned to face me fully. Tomorrow I drive to Nash and you drive to Chicago. Next weekend one of us makes the trip to see the other. We talk every day in between. We figure it out as we go, knowing that what we found is worth the effort. That simple, huh? I said with a small smile. Not simple, he corrected, but clear like this place. He gestured to the lake, the trees, the sky. The clearing isn't just a name, it's what happens here. We clear away the underbrush of doubt and fear and pretense, and we see what's real, what's possible. I leaned in to kiss him, trying to convey through touch what words couldn't adequately express. When we parted, I said, I'm going to hold you to that plan next weekend, your place or mine. His smile was radiant in the moonlight. Mine, I want to show you Nashville, my Nashville. It's a date, I agreed. The morning came too quickly, bringing with it the logistics of departure, packing, exchanging final goodbyes, loading cars. Caleb and I had exchanged phone numbers, email addresses, social media handles, even mailing addresses, determined to maintain every possible connection. As I prepared to leave, my cabin mates gathered for one final moment together. Jasper, ever the social director, insisted on a group photo. Miguel, who had watched my journey with Caleb with quiet approval, gave me a warm hug. Stay in touch, he said, and be happy. Finally, there was just Caleb and me standing by our cars, reluctant to make the final goodbye. This isn't an ending, he reminded me, pulling me close. It's a beginning, I nodded, memorizing the feeling of his arms around me, the scent of his skin, the sound of his heartbeat. Beginning, I agreed. One last kiss, lingering and sweet, and then we separated, getting into our respective cars. As I drove down the gravel path away from the clearing, I glanced in my rearview mirror to see Caleb's car following mine. At the main road, he would turn right toward Nashville and I would turn left toward Chicago. For now, though, we were still moving in the same direction, and there was comfort in that. My phone dinged with a text message. At the next straight stretch of road, I glanced down to see Caleb's name on the screen, already counting the days until next weekend. A smile spread across my face as I focused back on the road ahead. The path forward wasn't entirely clear, and there would be challenges and uncertainties, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't hiding from the possibilities. I was moving toward them, open and hopeful. My name is Sebastian, and I'm longer invisible.